First off, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to those apostles and elders from Great Millstone who teach and rule well. A lot of respect to you brothers out there on the highways and byways preaching this truth around the four corners of the earth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that you guys may be sealed soon. And with that, this your brother DeWild Bar from the branch of GMS here in Chicago, coming right back at you with a little lesson. And, this lesson is based on a conversation I heard from a guy yesterday. I mean, I really wasn't, I went into the store, to get a few things. And while I'm waiting around, I'm listening to this guy talking on the phone. You know how niggas love to just talk loud on the phone so everybody can hear him. But this conversation was kind of interesting to me, man, because he was talking to somebody, don't know who, and telling him about a friend that he grew up with since he was little, and saying that, hey, man, my friend, man, that I grew up, man, been telling motherfuckers he a homosexual, man, for the longest time, man, like he always want motherfuckers to come over to the house, kick it with him and spend the night, just hang out with him, and I was telling somebody, man, that, hey, if he asks you to do that, I keep telling you a homosexual. I told him, hey, man, I'm married, I got me a wife and all this stuff, so I'm listening to him. But the thing that I'm thinking in my mind is, if you know this motherfucker homosexual, why you still hanging around with him as a straight man? To me, that makes me think that you one of them yourself. No matter if you got a wife or not. Man, when you come into this truth, man, you got to let that nonsense go, man. You can't be sit up here legal. Now, you got to work with people that are. Yes, you do. You might have to deal with a family member that is. Yes, you do. But the way this guy was sounding, man, he acting like, man, he hanging with this dude, calling him and kicking. No, man, you probably one yourself, man. Probably one of them DL brothers, man. Because I can't see myself talking to somebody, telling them about somebody that I grew up with that's a homosexual. I'm not one myself. And hanging around him and saying that how he want me to come spend the night. That means you won, man. That means you won. But the whole point I want to get at, man, when you come into this truth, man, you got to separate yourself from that nonsense, man. You got to separate yourself from people who don't think like you. Like I said, you got to work with people. You got family members you might have to deal with. You're going to have to deal with. No matter who it is. But if you separating yourself, man. Point blank, period. So I just want to grab a few scriptures on that, because that's what it just made me think of, a few scriptures. Romans was the first one I had to think of. Romans chapter 12. In verse 1, it says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Yahweh, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to Yahweh, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of Yahweh. And that's what you got to do, man. You got to be renewed in mind, man, renewed in spirit, man. You can't walk around doing the same things and being the same nigga that you was in the world, You can't be the same nigga, Hey, man, I distanced myself from a lot of bullshit, man, since when I came into this truth. I don't be hanging around a whole bunch of niggas. I don't be doing all that shit no more. You got to get that in your mind. Same way when I was listening to this dude. You talking about this dude, a Momo, man. I wouldn't be hanging around this motherfucker calling his ass. What the fuck for? What you calling this dude for? And you saying you married and got kids. Nigga, you a damn Momo yourself. From how it sounded to me, all that friend shit is bullshit. But like I said before, I'm sitting up here just listening to him. I'm like, man, this nigga is a Momo himself. But you supposed to have a renewed mind, man. The other thing I want to sit up here and get was what? 2 Corinthians, is it 6? Yeah, here you go. This is 2 Corinthians 6. God just go to the point. This 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. It says, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion have light with darkness? Hey, yeah, you don't supposed to be unequally yoked or equally yoked with these motherfuckers. You don't supposed to sit up here and matter of fact, Before I go any further, man, let me sit up here and look this up in the blue letter. Unequally yoked. Let me look up the equally and unequally yoked in the blue letter. Salakia, brothers. It was not blue letter Bible. It was that 2 Corinthians. Six and what? That's 14. Oh shit! I spelled it wrong. Salakia. 2 Corinthians. Is that 6 and 14? There you go. Let's look up that word unequally. What is that? Heterozygeo. Heterazugeo. I'll just put it like this.
Strong's G 2086. Heterazugeo.
Yeah, I'm saying it all.
Heterazugeo.
So what it says, to associate discordantly, unequally yoked together, be unequally yoked Bible uses, to have fellowship with one who is not an equal, to come under an unequal or different yoke, to be unequally yoked, where apostles is forbidding Christians to have intercourse with idolaters. But you know what I'm trying to get at. You don't sit up here supposed to be bothering with these motherfuckers, man. Let them be. When you come into this truth, man, motherfuckers like that, you let go in the world like that. You shouldn't even be with them before you come into the truth in the first place. What the hell am I saying? But I'm sitting up here listening to this clown, and I'm like, God damn, is this motherfucker? So you saying that you this and then that, and you saying that you still talk to this dude, but you telling motherfuckers, man, he a homosexual, but you sitting up here saying that he call ass mother, and I'm thinking to myself, man, what type of bullshit is that? Nigga, you just like that dude, man. But that's people for you, man. That's the bullshit that you listen to, But it says, like 2 Corinthians 6 and 14 again, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion have light with darkness? You can't, there's just no mixing, And like I said before, this is just based off the conversation I was listening to with this fool yesterday, man. That's all this is. Based off the conversation I was listening to, hey, man, you come into this truth, man. You got to separate yourself from the bullshit. It says, and what concord have Hamashiach will be allowed, or what part have he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of Yahweh with idols? So my thing is, the Lord sitting up here saying, you don't have nothing in common with this motherfucker. So why are you with him? You don't have nothing in common with these people. Why you with them? If you sit up here and go into another scripture, it said, what has the sheep with the wolf? That's roughly paraphrasing. Hey, how could a sheep walk with a wolf? How could a dog be with a wolf? You know what I'm saying, brothers. But my thing is, for ye are the temple of the living power, as Yahweh has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. It says, where come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not unclean things, and I will receive you. See, there it is. You got to separate yourself from the people in this world. And like I said, you use the word and not abuse it. And like I said, this conversation just come to listening to this fool, man. That's all it is. Conversation comes just listening to this clown. I'm thinking to myself, so you saying that you ain't part of it, but you sitting up here call and talk to this motherfucker, And I'm listening to the whole conversation. I can't help but to hear it, But it just made me think of, hey, brothers, and anybody that's new, hey, when you come into this truth, man, you got to separate yourself from people, man. You can't go following after the same things that everyone else has done. It says light and darkness. Light has no communion with darkness. Light cannot be equally yoked with darkness. When light hit the room, darkness is totally wiped out. And that's just facts. But I want to sit up here and grab this other one. This is 1 Peter chapter 4. It says, in 1, it says, for as much then as Yahweh Shah Hamashiach has suffered for us in the flesh, arm yourselves likewise with the same mind, for he that hath suffered in the flesh have ceased from sin. Hey, so we got to be in the same mind frame, man. Man, we got to sit up here and separate ourselves from the bullshit of this world, you know. It says that he no longer shall live the rest of his life, the rest of his time in flesh to the lust of men, but to the will of Yahweh. And that's thing, you know. Hey, look, man, we men. You know, bro's going to make mistakes here and there. We can't keep everything perfect, but we walk as perfectly as we can, man. We ain't doing shit on purpose. You know, like I said before, we in this flesh. You know, even Apostle Paul always set up here and say, you know, hey, you know, in this flesh dwelleth no good thing. You know, I fight my flesh every day. You got to bring it under subjection. And we got to do the same. We got to fight it every day, man. We got to fight it every day. It says, 1 Peter 4:3, for the time past of our life may suffice us to have wrought the will of the Gentiles when we walked in lasciviousness, lust, excess of wine, revelings, banquetings, and abominable idolatry. So here it is, we walked after our lust, drinking, a lot of partying, you know, following after idols, worshiping bullshit, being in Christianity, wherever we was as far as religious beliefs, you know, doing all sorts of bullshit, man. It says, when they think it not strange that ye run not with them to same excess of riot, speaking evil. Yeah, and that's the whole point. Once you separate yourself, people get mad. And if you've been in this truth a while, man, or you come to this truth, trust me, it happens. The moment you separate yourself and start doing things differently, people do not like you. People have a problem with it. And here it is, you ain't doing nothing. You stop eating pork and certain things, motherfuckers get mad. You stop celebrating holidays, motherfuckers get mad. You stop going to these bullshit ass churches, motherfuckers get mad. You know, because you're not doing the same bullshit they doing, you know. And like I said, you know, family members, friends, you know, you, like I said, you got to deal with them. Hey, if you married, you know, if your wife pleases to dwell with you, deal with her, you know. And a lot of men, a lot of brothers got wives who ain't in this truth, man, you know. But they still, some of the wives still deal with them. Some of them left. And that's going to be to their damnation, you know. But the ones who still dealing, still deal. You know, you still do the things you're supposed to do as a wife, you know. When people sit up here and get mad at bullshit, man. But they want you to do the same thing. But here it is, you separating yourself, trying to be a new man. Trying to sit up here and do the will of the Lord. Not to follow your flesh. Or not to do the will of other motherfuckers. You know. But that was just something I was thinking about when I was listening to this clown yesterday, you know. Hey, man, hey, look. When you come into the truth, you got to separate yourself, man. And like I said, you got to deal with people. You got to work with them. You got to do things with them. But that's as far as it goes. This motherfucker talking to a Momo on the phone, still hanging. He been my friend since, and look, he still used the term "he's my friend." So that means present time, you know. So that dude probably a Momo himself. But with that, man, hey, look, you know, hey, man, we almost out of here, brothers, man. Hey, look, we just need to do the things we doing, man. Be charitable, do our lessons, you know, be out there on the highways and byways, pray all the time, fast if need be. You know, do the things, man, you know, because we trying to get on that chariot. We trying to get that salvation. We trying to get those crowns. You know, we trying to finish the whole race and endure to the end. So with that, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, by Hashem Rakak Wadash. Double honors to those apostles and elders from Great Millstone who teach and rule well. A lot of respect to you brothers out there on the highways and byways preaching this truth around the four corners of the earth. It's how you taste to the whole fold that you guys may be sealed soon. And with that, I always say stay prayed up, brothers. Pray for each other because we almost up out of here. So with that, I like to say Kwam Yasharella and a Baba Ball and Anya Habatam Malakia. Shalom.